Road, which is 75% of respondents. Councillor Bramage proclaimed in the October meeting that he presumed the
Welcome to the Waratah Wynyard Council's annual council meeting, February council meeting. Welcome everyone along and declare the meeting open at 6:03. I'd like to advise that the meeting will be digitally recorded in accordance with the council policy Gov 017, digital recording of council meetings, to record the meetings of council, to assist in the preparation of meetings and to allow live streaming of council meetings. I'd also like to acknowledge country. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respects to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. We have the record of attendance tonight. We have one apology. Councillor Dunyam, Deputy Mayor Dunyam, is an apology for tonight. Someone like to move that apology?
Yes, Mayor, I'll move that. Thank you.
Councillor Bramage. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Courtney seconded. Leave of absence previously approved. That's nil. Confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting. Someone like to move on those, please? Councillor Courtney moved.
Second that, Mayor.
Councillor Bramish seconded. And at this stage, any corrections to the minutes are to be identified and agreed prior to taking a vote to adopt the minutes. Is everyone happy how they were recorded and how they read before I put the motion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I think I might have forgot to put the apology. No. Didn't I? No. Must be thinking of too many things. Okay, declaration of interests. Councillors and staff, have anyone tonight a matter on the agenda that they'd like to declare on? Take that as nil. Announcements, we move to 4.1. Announcements by the Mayor. I have nothing to announce at this stage. 4.2, the Mayor's communications. There is a list there of the commitments that I've undertaken for the last month. And any questions in relation to those? If not, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hyland moved.
Yes, second that, Mayor.
I think Councillor Edwards might have beat you, Councillor Bramish. Councillor Edwards seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Reports by delegates, there are nil. Notification of council workshops. We note the list of council workshops that we've had and the upcoming workshops and the attendance records there. Would someone like to move on those, please? Councillor Hyland. Councillor Bradley, seconded. Any questions in relation to those details? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We're up to 5 now. Public questions and statements. 5.1 responses to various ones from last meeting. Then 5.2, public questions received in writing and without notice. We move to 5.4, public statements received in writing. .4.1. Mrs. Gropper received. We received 5.5. I guess we need to move that be received, that correspondence. No, okay. 5.5, public statements without notice. It is now a section in the council meeting to agenda to address those councillors' questions and statements without notice, and which we have previously been advised of. And prior to that, it's necessary for me to read a small message to us all that intend to take part in that. And the council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with council's core values, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect, and we expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with council. As I know, as Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain orderly conduct of council meetings and to determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to the use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I know members of the public will show the consideration and courtesy in their comments. Thank you. On previously advised, we have a question from Justin McElwin. Justin, would you like to provide your... Thank you. No.
All right, good evening. Hope everybody is good. My statement in question is in regards to a proposal by local farmers for the establishment of a Northwest truck wash and associated sales yard in Burnie located at the Minna Road site. This follows on from recent meetings held by the Northwest Community Market Association and hosted by the Waratah Wynyard Council in January and February this year. Thanks for hosting those. Ian Jones and myself, as representatives of Business Northwest, met with this group last Monday the 8th of February to get an overview of the project and work out how we can assist in bringing this worthwhile regional project to fruition. I must thank Mayor Robbie Walsh for his involvement and support with this group. Without local government and regional involvement, the projects cannot succeed. So once again, thanks to Mayor Robbie Walsh, council staff and councillors for your support in hosting and listening to this worthwhile project. The establishment of a sales yard and truck wash are important for the agricultural sector in our municipality and beyond. My question is, will council publicly endorse this project with a letter of support for the establishment of the sales yard and truck wash at the Minna Road site?
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Well, in answer to that, Mr. McGowan, as a council, we don't have a formal position, but as a group, we will discuss the matter at next week's workshop, where all councillors will be briefed on the proposal, and we'll reply to you at that stage. Thank you. Next is a statement and questions from Mr. Hutchinson. I invite you to the microphone, Mr. Hutchinson.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. First question, on page 108 of the Livable Waratah Wynyard Settlement Strategy, the current plan is to rezone Langley Park, Somerset from recreation zoning to general residential zoning. Presumably this is the next step towards the council plans, OSSR and CADS. Proposed relocation of existing users to the Department of Education land adjacent Somerset Primary School, then commencing the sale of the recreation ground for development or housing subdivision. Have the Somerset Football Club and Somerset Cricket Club been consulted on these proposed changes? Now we see them again in the settlement strategy. Are they supportive of these changes, and in general, are they supportive of the potential relocation to a new recreation space yet to be developed?
Okay, Mr. GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. You're right, Mr. Hutchinson. I guess that concept had its origins in Council's Open Space Sport and Recreation Plan, which was released a couple of years ago. There has been some preliminary discussions, I guess, with both the football and cricket clubs and any other, I guess, affected organisations. There's certainly been a number of discussions with the Department of Education through the Somerset Primary School, but equally the main departmental heads in Hobart. I guess as part of any discussion, the clubs wish to see what the proposal is, so what they could be moving towards, and that detail, I guess, is yet to be determined. So there's no detailed designs done on any, I guess, new precinct in Somerset. So difficult to answer your question around their level of support, but certainly there has been some engagement, albeit not a lot in recent times, while some of that detailed design is being worked up.
Thanks, Mr. GM.
Thank you. Second question. Can the General Manager please provide a summary of the West by Northwest Regional Tourism Forum held on the 29th of January in Devonport? If there is any greater vision or clarity for supporting local tourism priorities in the Waratah Wynyard area, and if the Get Closer tourism advertising campaign had a significant impact on local visitation, and what, if any, are the next steps for council marketing the municipality?
Mr. GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I will endeavour to undertake that task if Mr. Hutchinson so wishes. Certainly the initial indications are that the Get Closer campaign had a positive effect. We've got some data, some information and I guess anecdotal feedback from throughout the municipality, so we'll put that together and provide a reply to Mr. Hutchinson's question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hutchison, you had a statement?
Yes, thank you.
And look, I'd just like to remind you that we have a limited time for tonight. We have a fair few on the list, so
big night as always. No worries. Yeah. All right, East Wynyard. Interesting to see that as part of the report tonight, that 46% of the 98 respondents to East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan consultation were young people aged 11 to 20. Maybe we can take that statistic with a bit of a grain of salt, but it would seem that on the surface, young people want a greater say in the direction that this council takes the municipality. They want to participate and they want their aspirations to be considered. My initial thoughts are, how can we as a community, with support from the council, activate this age demographic and take it beyond the consultation that council does to empower action that follows the ideas that they have. In regards to the CCTV camera proposal, I think there's a bit of a tension between security and privacy. So the financial report on page 60 highlights council's desire to further roll out the cameras now at the East Wynyard Playground. This is an area where many families spend time. I have serious concerns with a local government organisation having CCTV cameras operating in public spaces that are primarily used by families. If council believes it's necessary, it should be lobbying the state government, and the Tasmanian Police should be the sole operator of the infrastructure who would use it in situations of criminal activity following reports. Antisocial behaviour is pretty subjective at times, and I don't think it's justification for CCTV cameras to invade the privacy of families. So I guess I have a couple of questions, and maybe these are naive, I'm not sure. So who will have access to the CCTV footage? Will it be constantly monitored? How long will the footage be maintained for? Does this council have adequate security to prevent data breaches? So I understand where the council is coming from, hearing the calls to protect, but the responsibility is not with local government. So as an example, if sectors of the community called council to begin training a Navy or Border Force to protect the Waratah Wynyard coastline from territorial expansion, would this council do it? Clearly this is under the federal government banner, so I think criminal behaviour is under the state government responsibility. So yes, there's cooperation, and yes, playground is a council asset, but is the council going to want to install CCTV cameras at all of its assets? And what about the assets that it leaves to ruin? How much money will be spent on securing assets, and will this come at the further expense of actual benefits to the community? And my last point is on the settlement strategy again. When does the community get to see the local provision schedule? So Councillor Fairbrother at the November community run planning meeting said that the local provision schedules for Waratah Wynyard as part of the development of the new Tasmanian planning scheme would be available for public comment soon, and has since stated to me that this will still be a number of weeks or months away. I understand that this has taken a long time, but can a settlement strategy, such as the one that's currently advertised for public comment, really have the complete details without the finalisation of these local provision schedules and the adoption of the new planning scheme? Isn't this a scenario of a cart before the horse? If statewide policies dictate to regional and local frameworks, would it be advisable to wait to adopt a settlement strategy at a later date? As someone that lives in rural areas, I find it disappointing that in the settlement strategy it says that rural agricultural zones are generally outside the scope of the settlement strategy project, because that was considered heavily with the local provision schedule. But without being able to see the local provision schedule, how can I actually assess the validity of the settlement strategy and what council is doing for rural areas? Thank you.
Thank you. It is now Mr. Saywood, will you have a statement in regarding Foster's? Would you like to present that, please?
Thank you. Renaming Foster's Road to Forster's Road.
Yeah.
I feel that the affected ratepayers have been unfairly and unjustly treated by council in this matter by not having the overwhelming majority of respondents' views taken into consideration at the October 20 meeting. No consultation was undertaken with councillors, or council decide. No consultation was undertaken when a councillor decided he was not happy with the September vote and decided to bring it back to council. In fact, apart from the survey, there was no consultation with council or councillors. No information, not informing us that the council had voted a second time on the matter and changing the decision that we had viewed in the September minutes. Council took 3 months to supply this information and only did so when the government had made the changes. This issue has been overshadowed by the actions of this council. I checked the minutes of the September meeting and saw that the council had passed not to change the road name and presumed that it was finished. We as ratepayers who elected the councillors presumed that their interests were being looked after by them, and have been sorely disappointed to find that the old saying, "It's not what you know, it's who you know," seems to apply. It appears to me that only one councillor has been pushing to have a second chance meeting on this issue and had a month to sway the other councillors. The council has only been given one side of the story by Councillor Fairbrother, who is on the side of the Forster family, who may or may not be ratepayers but do not live in this road and so are not affected by this change. Councillor Bramich in the October meeting said he had changed his mind due to the information supplied to him by Councillor Fairbrother. The affected ratepayers were not given any notice of this issue being revisited, and so no chance to make their views known to Council. This has caused a lot of anguish to us. Council documentation from the minutes of both September and October meetings only show that the Forsters lived on Ballast Pit Road. Councillor Fairbrother attests to this as proof that the name was meant to be Forsters, not Fosters, but has shown no evidence of this. There has been no evidence submitted to show the council or an employee of that time made a mistake in the spelling. In the October meeting, Councillor Fairbrother states in fact that the council made the mistake in spelling. We as a group are incensed by Councillor Fairbrother stating that we don't want to change our addresses just because we just don't. The council survey was a yes or no. It said that we could add some reasoning if we wanted to. I do not have the exact words as we returned the form, and i.e. it was not compulsory. There was no indication that we would need to add reasoning to make our vote count. He has made us look like idiots because he intimates we have no reasons for wanting to change our addresses. He did not bother to contact the affected ratepayers to actually find out our views on the matter, so he could form an unbiased opinion on this matter. The council as a whole appears to have based their second vote on his opinions. In the October meeting he asked, "What is council for?" and sprouts frilly words about council values, the right thing, the popular thing, the highest bar, etc. He never once mentions looking out for the ratepayers' interests, which is why we have elected the councillors. He obviously believes we don't matter and our views are not worthy. I feel that Councillor Fairbrother has broken the codes of conduct on all 4 points of Part 1, decision making, and Part 7, relationships with community councillors and council employees, point 1B and possibly C. It appears that Councillor Fairbrother has managed to override a council decision and put it to a new meeting by giving his version to other councillors without allowing any parties to know it was happening and submit any contrary information. In his speeches at both meetings, he did not supply any facts other than the family had lived in the area, but flowery words on heritage, doing the right thing, etc. He has used biased arguments to bring other councillors to his point of view, which appears to be based wholly on Facebook comments and one family's grievances. The council's own documentation for both meetings only proves that the Forster family lived on Ballast Pit Road. They have supplied no facts that it was ever meant to be or ever was named Forster's Road. To my understanding, the survey had 8 respondents out of 16, which is a 50% response rate. Of the respondents, 6 were in favour of leaving the name as Foster's Road, which is 75% of respondents. Councillor Bramich proclaimed in the October meeting that he presumed the 8 non-respondents did not care. I do not think that this is a fair assumption, as there are many reasons for not returning. As an example, we tried 3 times to access the survey online using the address supplied, and it kept saying the page did not exist, which is a fault of the address supplied or with the council site. As such, I hope that he or any other councillors did not take this to mean that the 8 non-respondents were in favour of changing the name. To me, 75% rate for no change is an overwhelming amount. I've included in what I submitted some pages from the Tasmanian Place Naming Guideline, March 2019, with this statement. In the interest of keeping this shorter, I will not read out what I think are the relevant points, but among others, bring to your attention Section 3, General Principles, Item 3.3, and Section 7, Naming Streets and Roads, Item 7.13. I would say that I have not seen that the council has met these guidelines. Councillor Fairbrother said that the family of Tom Forster is disgruntled. The council now has a minimum of 10 ratepayers and their families who are very disgruntled. mainly due to the way we feel we have been treated by the council. If I am incorrect in some of these points, I apologise, but can only go on what I have found because no one has been willing to talk to us. I can only assume it is all right to talk to a disgruntled family, but not affected ratepayers. God help us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saylor. Thank you. Now next, now we'll move to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith with his, he had a question. Martin Smith, please come forward and...
Yeah, Martin Smith, a resident in Foster's Road since 1985.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be reasonable for residents of Foster's Road to expect that the decision taken at the September 2020 council meeting to leave the name of Foster's Road unchanged be final? And why then, without any further consultation with the residents, was the decision reversed at the October 2020 council meeting, not allowing residents, the majority of whom had already opposed the change, any further input? The letter sent to residents on the 5th of February 2021 only mentions the decision made at the October 2020 council meeting, neglecting to mention the original decision to leave the name unchanged at the September 2020 council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Searle, Mr. Smith's question. Could you run through that with us, please?
Thanks for your question, Mr. Smith. I confirm that Council did consider the renaming of Foster's Road at its meeting in September and accepted an officer's recommendation at that meeting that the name remain unchanged. Another motion was put forward at the October meeting to rescind that decision and alter the name to Foster's Road, and that motion was successful. I would encourage you to refer to the audio from that council meeting to get an understanding of the rationale behind the decision. So I understand that most of the councillors spoke to that motion that night, so I would encourage you to listen to the recording.
Thank you, Mrs. Searle. That concludes our public statements and questions. I will remind us that I was a bit dusty early in the meeting, and Mrs. Cropper has her statement listed on the agenda. So thank you for that, Mrs. Cropper. Next item on the agenda is 6.11, the sealing of Robin Hill Road. Recommendation there, councillors? That council receive and note the petition regarding the sealing of Robin Hill Road.
I'll move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bramish moved.
I'll second it.
Councillor Fairbrother seconded. Any speakers? Any wish to speak, Councillor Bramish?
No, it's just a petition, and I guess we'll talk about it in due course, I guess, when we're doing our budget estimates. Will that be correct?
That'd be right, yes. I just wondered if you had anything else to say. Any councillors have anything further to say in regarding this motion before I put it? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Planning Authority items. Item 7.1, questions relating to planning matters. We have none, and statements, same. 6.3, I'd like to declare at 6:27 we are acting as a planning authority, councillors. Item 6.3, dwelling, caravan, shipping container and water tank stage development at 50 Tippets Road, Mount Hicks. We have a recommendation there, councillors. And Councillor Edwards, did you wish to, you had a matter that you'd like to attach to this?
Yes. Can I move this motion providing this extra condition be added, please?
Okay. Would you like to furnish us with that condition?
Okay. The use of the existing shed for temporary residential accommodation shall cease prior to the occupation of the proposed dwelling or within 2 years of the date of this permit, whichever is the lessor. Confirmation of cessation, if that's the right word, shall be supplied to the council within 14 days of the issuing of an occupancy permit for the approved dwelling or removal of the temporary dwelling.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, you've heard the additional condition that Councillor Edwards has proposed. Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Courtney? Yeah,
Can I just clarify, please, that I understand that's a replacement of the existing condition 9 that was in the recommendation, the agenda, so not an additional condition.
Okay.
I think it's a replacement of the existing condition 9 that you have in front of you in your agenda.
Yeah, that'd be the way it went.
Mayor Walsh, any chance we could get it up on the screen? Heard it read, but I'd like to have a reread. Is that possible? Other councillors may be in a similar position.
No, and through you, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately the screen is not working tonight, so that's not possible.
If you'd like to hear it repeated, I guess Councillor Edwards could repeat it. Okay, we have a
I'd like to hear it if that's all right.
Okay. Councillor Edwards, would you run through it again, please?
Okay.
It is a matter to replace condition 9. It's a replacement for condition 9.
Okay. The use of the existing shed for temporary residential accommodations shall cease prior to the occupation of the proposed dwelling or within 2 years of the date of this permit, whichever is the lessor. Confirmation of cessation shall be supplied to the council within 14 days of the issuing of an occupancy permit for the approved dwelling or removal of the temporary dwelling.
Thank you. Clear with that, councillors? You wasn't switched on, Councillor Bramish. Anyone wish to speak regarding 6.3? We have a mover and a seconder. Any speakers before I put the motion? No. Oh, Councillor Bradley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this application I think has met all the criterias, and there are a couple of representations, but they don't deal with the building of this house, so I'm in favour of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Any Councillor Fairbrother, you had your light on.
Thank you, Mayor. Any chance that we could hear from the mover why the need for an amendment to number 9, and perhaps some explanation to the variation and the consequences between the new amended condition and the previous original condition provided by the planners?
A question from Councillor Fairbrother. Who would like to go first? Councillor Edwards.
I just think this is, we've read the history of this and it's been going on for quite a while, and my reasoning behind this is that for the other landowners around this area, it gives them a finish date for it, and I think with that condition added, or the reading of it, hopefully it'll bring some closure in the future for it.
Thanks, Councillor Edwards. Do our planning department, Mr. Thornton, do you wish to mention anything at all in relation to the replacement of condition 9? No, that's okay. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, you've answered, the question's been answered.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of the response, I won't be supporting the motion. Essentially, if I have it correct, and I have been known to be wrong before, that essentially council will be kicking these people out onto the street, and who knows where they'll be going. My reckoning of the amendment is that they need to exit the property prior to the dwelling being established. It appears, and I hope I'm wrong, but it appears as though the people will be out on the street with nowhere to go. And I don't think that that is what we as a council want. Again, if I've got it wrong, I'm quite happy to put up my hand and say, sorry, I've got it wrong, but my brief interpretation of the amendment is that essentially the council want to kick the people out on the street because of the behest of the local environment, the other people that live in Tippett's Road. I may have some sympathy with the people who own the property. Perhaps they don't have the means to afford a house. Perhaps they don't have the means to live in an established residence like the rest of us do. And I just don't think that we should just turf them out on the street because they don't comply with the planning rules. I think that we need to be, again, a little bit, demonstrate a little bit of compassion if that's what's required. I don't have a problem with the original recommendation. I think that has been, to me, well considered by our planning staff. I don't think it is unreasonable. I just think the amended condition changes the set of circumstances for the people who this planning application is supposed to provide some legislative benefit to. I'd be well pleased if the mover of the motion could challenge that position and tell me that I'm wrong. But as it stands, I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers? Councillor Bramley.
Can I ask a question, Mayor, if I may?
Question for Councillor Bramley.
I guess through you, I guess the planner is probably the best person to answer this. Is what Councillor Fairbrother indicated, in your view, correct?
Councillor Bramley has a question, Mr. Thornton, in regarding to Councillor Fairbrother's statement.
Sorry, in your view, is Councillor Fairbrother correct in the comments he made about being kicked out and that sort of thing?
Half and half. So I guess what's been applied for is a temporary dwelling until the principal dwelling is constructed. The amendment to the condition puts a time frame on how long they have to transition to that principal dwelling. So it's either they build the principal dwelling, move into it, or if they haven't done that within 2 years, then they are required to remove the temporary dwelling, which is what I guess a temporary dwelling should have a time limit on it, otherwise it's not temporary. So yes, it's the lesser time. If they build their principal dwelling within 2 years, and they can move into that and they comply with that condition. If not, at the end of that 2 years, then they are required to remove the temporary dwelling.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
Mayor, excuse my ignorance. Would I be allowed another question, please?
Okay.
I guess my question to that would be, what would anyone else be allowed? 2 years or 4 years or whatever? Is it the 2 years?
Yep. So there's a standard note on all permits. So people have 2 years to use a permit. But you do have then 2 opportunities to extend the permit beyond that. So it can be potentially up to 6 years in the legislation if you get all your extensions of time. So this is conditioning it a little bit stronger than what's allowed under the Act.
Thank you. Councillor Bramley?
Would you allow another question, Mayor?
Yeah, that'll be it.
Thank you. This will be the last one. Would these people, if they got to 15, 16 months and requested an extension, how would they sit with that if we pass this motion that's in front of us?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they would not be able to get an extension because the condition has that time frame on it. They'd have to reapply for a new permit.
Thanks, Mr. Thornton. Councillor Bradley?
Can I ask another question, please, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
The temporary dwelling, do you mean the caravan? The caravan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the caravan. Yep.
Right, thanks. Sorry, it's got
Thank you.
2 caravans, so both of them have to go? Both caravans go? Yep. Thanks.
Councillor Fairbrother?
Mayor, a question if I might.
Yep.
Perhaps in response to Councillor Bramage, in part, does not the original recommendation or the original point 9 in the recommendation from council staff, isn't that the normal condition that would apply to any other dwelling or like situation in the municipality? That is the, as I understand it, the standard response, as opposed to the heightened level of enthusiasm to cast these people out onto the street that's been requested.
Mr. Thornton, could you handle that question, please?
I can do. Yes, that is the standard condition that was in the original recommendation. Typically that applies on a site where people would like to construct a shed, live in the shed for a time before they build the principal dwelling. So yes, that's the standard condition that we would use.
Thank you. Okay, any speakers to the motion? Any speakers against? Any speakers at all? Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, to start with, Council has already issued a building notice on the landowner in April 2020. So obviously there's, with the comments coming in and happened to go up and have a look, and it's a bit unsightly. But obviously this is the first step in achieving compliance. So the resident is obviously having a few difficulties in getting a house in order, and this step now gives her a chance to achieve compliance. But what's happened with the mover of the motion and the changing of point 9, it actually puts a little bit of pressure on that person to actually get something done and get it tidied up, because the continued comment from the residents is that it's an unsightly site. And what's council doing about it? Well, they've already issued a building notice, so can't do any more than that. The processes have to take place. So I'm in support of the motion, and I think all it does is nothing about throwing the person out on the street. They've just got to get their house in order and get things happening. And I don't know if in 2 years' time, if I know what the planner's answer was to Councillor Brummich's question, but I think in reality, if the job was at the stage where there was probably a couple of technical things holding, and it was all that was holding the building up, I don't think anybody would be tossed out in the street dead on 2 years. So I think we need to let the thing happen, let it process, and see where we are at the end of it. So I'm in support of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Any further speakers? The mover and the seconder haven't spoken. Councillor Fairbrother, I thought you had spoken.
That I have, Mayor, and I've been graciously offered the opportunity to ask 2 questions. I did note Councillor Bramage asked 3. I was wondering whether you'd be so gracious in allowing me to ask another one.
You don't have to be so elaborate to me, Councillor Fairbrother. It's okay if one fair is one fair for the other with me.
Thank you. My question to perhaps the mover of the motion and those that wish to support the recommendation is that my question is, are you aware that currently there is a glut within the building and planning approvals process at the moment, which has been caused by the government's grants, which results in people being unable to get the necessary documentation together to put an application, to get the necessary approvals, to get the necessary permits? My question is, are you aware that there are difficulties outside of the normal process because of the glut within the building industry? That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. The mover and the seconder, you wish to answer that? Okay, no reply.
Yep. Oh, well,
okay.
I can answer it if they
You.
want to answer first. Well, in regard to my comment, Councillor Fairbrother, yeah, I'm well aware of what's going on out in the big wide world, and that was the reason I said what I said at the end of my conversation. A little bit of a reality check at the end of it with what's going on around the place. And if there's a 4-week shortfall, they're going to have to ask the question, aren't they? And I'm sure that if they're that far advanced, that council's not going to turf them out in the road.
Okay, we'll move on to speakers to the motion. Any further speakers? You going to speak, were you, Councillor Bremish?
Yeah, but it's not to the motion.
Okay. What was it in the line of a question, was it?
No, I was speaking against the motion. When my time's up.
Okay. Your turn.
Thank you. Look, I can see where the move is coming from. I really do that. There's been an issue up there for a period of time, and I think it's been slowly worked through by the applicant and council and that sort of thing. I wouldn't like us to put a condition on that property that we don't put on someone else. It's common knowledge out there in this big wide world that people who want to get something built have got to wait 12 months or longer. We can't get material here now without the builder or a contractor going to the mainland to buy it, to ship it over here. And with this COVID stuff, this is what we've got to look at. We've got to make, I guess, considerations for people. The place where I live at Leonard Drive, been there for 12 years. It hadn't had the final inspection. I thought, God, I didn't know that. But because of the COVID thing, everyone couldn't go anywhere or build anything, and we got an extension of time on that. So, look, I reckon we're not doing ourselves any favours, I don't think, if we put this condition on these people. But I can see where you're just coming from, so, but I just can't support that. And there's nothing in writing that if these people haven't got it done in 24 months and they apply in 23 months, they're going to get the tick of approval. There's nothing in here. The motion doesn't read that. Where, if you leave it like it is, they can stagger it and do it the best way they can. So for that reason, I can't support the motion.
Okay. Any further speakers? If not, mover and seconder wish to sum up?
I'll be real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, you haven't spoken, Councillor Courtney.
I seconded the motion because I'm always going to hear what other people have got to say. I didn't know what Councillor Edwards was going to put forward. We've heard the motion. We've heard quite a few comments around it. Let's just have a vote on the original motion because obviously it's not going to be supported, the amendment, and I'm on the same page as Councillor Bremish here. I don't want to make exceptions outside of the planning scheme because that puts us as the planning body, not as councillors, in a pretty bad position going forward if we make an exception. So I'd just like to say, I did second the motion to hear it, but I will go with the original motion, so if we could vote on that.
Okay. Any further speakers before I ask Councillor Edwards her wish or desire to sum up?
I'm happy to go with the motion as is and have it voted on.
Okay. There'll be a division. I'll call for a show of hands. Those in favour of the amended motion, please indicate. Councillor Hyland, Councillor Edwards. Yes, the amended one. What's the problem? I'm asking for a show of hands in relation to the motion that we have on the books, which is the amendment to condition 9, or the replacement of 9. Okay, so we've got Councillor Edwards, Councillor Hyland, and myself. Those against, Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Courtney and Councillor Bremish. The motion is lost. We'll revert now back to item 9, back on the proposal.
So moved, Mayor, as per the recommendation on the council agenda.
Move Councillor Fairbrother. Councillor Courtney. Any speakers? We've had a fair old dash at it. Is there much more to be said?
Against it, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Hyland speaking against it.
Yeah, well, obviously, by changing that 0.9, we were trying to, as I said, put a little bit of pressure on, get that area tidied up. It's a damn eyesore, I can assure you that. And there's a couple of things already in place for that to happen. The residents in Tippett's Lane are sick of the sight of it. So by doing what we're doing now, we're extending that out, and you heard what the planner did explain. This can go right out to probably 6 years. They'll get an extension because they're entitled to an extension now and then another extension. And it's not helping the situation at all. And I think and it's not the only area in the municipality. We just need to make a bit of a stand and start tidying these things up as they crop up, not letting them go on for years. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Any further speakers? Councillor Edwards?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, in regard to this motion.
Yeah. With the fire tanks, there's none in there at the moment, and that will come along with the building approval or the next... Not needed. But the occupant has been there for 18 months, so can they get a fire tank in earlier? Like, is there any pressure on them to get fire tanks in earlier because they're already living there?
I need to direct that one to our planners, I guess. Mr Thornton, can you handle that one?
I can. There would be no requirement for that until they get to the building stage. So until they lodge a building application, there's no trigger for that requirement.
Even though they're living there actually now?
Yep. So they need to get a permit. So this has been raised as an outstanding building notice and order. So that needs to still, regardless of the planning permit being granted or not, that still needs to be complied with outside that. So they will need to do that. They still need to address the building notice and order. And then when they build their principal dwelling, they'll also have to address the bushfire requirements at the building stage, which will be the same thing. It should be the same tank in a similar location.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to this motion. Any further questions or speakers? Councillor Fairbrother. Oh, sorry. Councillor Courtney.
I just want to ask a quick question of the planner.
Okay.
Is that all right through you, Mr Mayor?
Yeah, go for it.
Yep, just quickly, Ashley, my understanding is that there's not necessarily a given that you're going to get an extension. My understanding is that this movement here tonight is that you have to progress a certain amount within that 2 years. So you don't automatically get an extension.
No, we do give extensions 99% of the time. Where we wouldn't would be where a planning scheme has changed in that period. That would then mean that, you know, if it was applied for today, it may be considered differently. So as long as there's no substantial change to the planning rules that equate to that development, they are given the extension.
Thank you. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother. I think his light's on, but he's not ready. No, I mean Councillor Hyland.
Lights on, no one's own. Yeah, Mayor Walsh, I wish to speak in support of the motion and at the same time respond to Councillor Hyland's comments about people in the local area sick of the sight of the property. I don't know the property owners and I don't know the property in question. However, I can refer back to prior history. This history is well renowned in Waratah Wynyard. The people of Waratah Wynyard and the people of Forsters Road have showed what a community can do when we get passionate about an issue. They've rallied, they've come along to council, voiced their displeasure in a decision of council, and they want to make noise about that. Their noise has been noted.
Councillor Fairbrother, could you stick to the item on the agenda, 6.3, this matter at Tippett's Lane?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Hyland referred to the residents of Tippett's Lane as being sick of the sight of the property. I was referring to Forster's Road people who are proud of their local area. I'm sure it's the same as the people in Tippett's Road. I'm wanting to ask myself, why is it that the residents, if they're so sick of the sight of it, don't do what ordinary Waratah Wynyard people, residents do, band together and go and knock on the door, or get a representative to knock on the door and say, hey, do you need a hand here? Because from the sounds of it, somebody needs to give the people a leg up. And who's better to do it than the neighbours or perhaps the local Lions Club? Somebody needs to give them a hand, and I don't think that we need to be such, I can't use the word that I want to use, but I think that we need to show them a little bit of community spirit and try and assist them where we can. I think that by moving the motion, we treat these people as we would anybody else, and I think that that is a reasonable thing to do, so I ask councillors to support the motion.
Any further speakers? No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 6.4. Subdivision there, consolidate 5 titles into one. Recommendation there.
I'll move as per the recommendation, Mayor.
Councillor Fairbrother moved.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Councillor Bramley seconded. We're travelling well now. Any further, any speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That concludes our planning, Mr. Chair. At 6:55. And how are we going? Not good. Matters raised by councillors. 8.1, responses to councillors' questions taken on notice, and they run through to where we get to 8.3, councillors' questions without notice. Councillors, away we go. Councillor Bradley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wish to foreshadow a motion to overturn the decision made at the October council meeting to change the name of Foster's Road to Forster's Road at the March council meeting.
Okay, thank you. We will list that, and when we arrive at that item on the agenda tonight, it'll be unnecessary to continue. Oh, isn't it? Where did I get that from?
It's in March.
Yep, okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm right. I was absolutely faux-fay with the agenda, but what's going on here?
I can clarify if you like, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Councillor Bradley did put forward a notice of motion late last week to go into this particular agenda in relation to the naming of Foster's or Forster's Road. I guess the local government meeting procedures regulations are very, clear in relation to once an agenda is produced, what items can come onto the agenda. And this particular matter doesn't meet those criteria. You have to meet 3 criteria around that it couldn't have been placed on the agenda in the first instance, that the matter is urgent, and you've received some qualified advice. And I believe you can meet probably the 3rd of those criteria, but not the first 2. So in that case, Councillor Bradley is quite correct that she can mention tonight that she'll put forward a notice of motion, and we'll include that in the March agenda.
Yep. Thanks, Mr. GM, for sorting that out for me. Any further councillors' questions without notice? Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, just a question, if I could, to the General Manager. There was a question reasonably asked in one of the previous meetings as to why we don't have our group workshop agendas listed for public. I couldn't find anywhere in the legislation that it's a requirement for us to not list it or to list it. I was just wondering if before the next meeting I could be told or informed as to why we don't put the agenda of the workshops out publicly?
I reckon our GM could answer that right now, Mr. GM. Could
Yeah,
you?
through you, Mr. Mayor. So we include on our agenda item 4.4, which is where we list what items we have on our workshop agenda. So all the matters that we discuss at a workshop are listed in item 4.4 on this agenda for noting. We also list, where known, any future agenda items, the subjects that we'll discuss. I understand the previous requests were to provide more detail. So I understand the queries that we had in recent meetings were that the public wished to sit in on those workshops, or they wish to see minutes of those workshops, which there aren't any. So I think the request was for greater information than what we provide. We provide what we need to, which is a listing of all the workshops that we talk about, so that anyone can see what items council is discussing at a workshop, but we don't provide any further detail in that regard. So hopefully that clarifies your question.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess it's to follow up on Councillor Bradley's motion that she's flagged for next month regarding the name change of Forsters Road. How will that sit? I guess we've gone through a process. I guess all the paperwork and things would be sent away now, and I'm not sure, but maybe even a sign made. How's another month sit with that? And what's the people think? Do they have false hope, or is it too late? I don't know whether anyone you can answer that. Is it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as you know, the decision for this particular matter was made in October, and typically, as council officers would, part of our role is to, action council decisions immediately after they're made. So typically, the decision would be made at the October council meeting. We would then pursue that matter and take the appropriate action. In this particular case, Councillor Bradley indicated there may be some, further evidence coming forward which may, alter council's position. I took the, position to wait until the new year to see if that information was forthcoming. I didn't believe there was anything that came forward which altered, or would influence the council decision, or more information that wasn't there available, when the original decision was made. So council officers then enacted the decision of council. All the statutory bodies have been notified, Councillor Bramich, as you rightly said. So if a decision is made at the next meeting to change your mind, to reverse the decision, to rescind the decision, it would be a matter of re-notifying all those bodies and authorities that we've done so already. And whether that happens next week or in a month's time won't make any difference whatsoever.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Any further questions, councillors, without notice?
Mr. Mayor, can I stand up and display this piece of
I'm sorry, Mrs. Cropper, but the opportunity for that was earlier in the meeting. Okay, any further questions from councillors without notice? Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor Walsh, I'll ask this question. I'm hoping that I'll get to talk to it a bit later in another matter later in the agenda, but I thought maybe I won't get to it and I'll probably forget. It does revolve around an issue that I have asked the question for before. The question is around the ownership of Morton Street at Boat Harbour. My question is, who is the rightful owner of Morton Street at Boat Harbour Beach? And I'll provide further discussion around this question later in the evening.
Mr. GM, can you answer that one now, or need to take it on notice?
We'll take that on notice. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
And we'll endeavour to do some searching as the discussion goes on.
Okay. Any further questions from councillors without notice? You had another one, Councillor Fairbrother?
I do, thank you, Mayor.
Let's go.
Just shortcut. The list identifies MB Fenton as the owner of Morton Street at Boat Harbour, but she's subsequently deceased.
Your question, Councillor Fairbrother.
Second question, Mayor, is can I state that I am prepared to participate in a code of conduct process if the claims that were asserted earlier on tonight provides me with an opportunity to reply to them. So that is my question. Thank you.
Mr. GM.
Oh, there's nothing further to comment other than to say that Councillor Fairbrother can do so, should he choose.
Thank you. Okay, any further councillors' questions without notice? Nothing further? We'll move on. Notice of motion, 9.1. Councillor Fairbrother, you like to lodge your notice of motion?
Mayor, I'll move 9.1 with the inclusion of, after the word ministers, forward slash ministers delegate. So it should read the council right to the respective minister / ministers delegate. I think personally it's one of the same, but it's an attempt to better reflect council staff's comments later in the item.
Sally, do we have that adjustment? Okay, we have a seconder for Councillor Fairbrother's proposed motion.
Yeah, I'll second that, Mayor.
Councillor Bremish seconded. Okay, open for comment. You like to open debate, Councillor Fairbrother?
Thank you, Mayor. Must firstly apologise to councillors. I did provide late the legislative references to the General Manager. I perhaps was like Councillor Bradley and missed the necessary deadlines. I was going to forward them to you. It is quite clear that there has been a change in the legislation, and it is not clear what the new state of play will be upon adoption of the new Tasmanian planning scheme. So I think it's an important question to ask the Minister or the Minister's delegate what the consequences of these changes will be, because they have been flagged in the amended legislation and they will be given effect upon the adoption of the Tasmanian planning scheme. And it's something that sad councillors like me, I suppose, are across. But I guess to ask the question, I'm asking you to provide a level of support that we can write a letter to try and get to the bottom of, well, what are the consequences of council adopting the new Tasmanian planning scheme for the Waratah Wynyard municipality going to be on all of the property owners that own land designated as landslip B. And we are, as a municipality, I believe the fourth largest town in Tasmania or municipality in Tasmania that has land designated as landslip B. So we have a significant amount of persons, and it has been recorded in previous council agendas how many people there are that are going to be affected, and I think we need to write to the Minister or his delegate seeking clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Any further speakers to the motion? For or against? No further speakers to the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour? I guess there'll be a division. All in favour, please raise your hand. Unanimously carried. Okay, we move on to 9.1, the East Wynyard Foreshore Master Plan feedback for noting. There's a recommendation there, councillors. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Courtney moved. Councillor Edwards seconded. Any speakers? That the council note the feedback from the community consultation. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.2, the senior management report, that we note the monthly senior management report and note councillor attendances at the Legat Professional Development course and note the submission to the proposed decommissioning of the Waratah Reservoir. I'll move in a second, please. Councillor Fairbrother. Councillor Highland seconded. Any speakers? Any questions? Councillor Fairbrother.
Can I pass? Just let somebody else take the floor, and I just want to do a bit more reading if I can.
Any further questions or any speakers? You're running out of time, Councillor Fairbrother, because we're about to put the motion.
Okay, Mayor. Ready to go.
Are you ready to go? I'll
Thank
put
you.
the motion all in. You're ready to go?
I am.
Okay, let's have it.
The draft waste and recovery bill. Mayor, I endorse council staff making a submission to the waste resource recovery proposed bill. The public consultation is now open, closing on Friday the 12th of March.
Yep.
I think it is important for council staff to write and make a submission on council's behalf about the proposal to increase a levy on our waste transfer station and curbside collection. Mayor, I am concerned that the proposal, and I haven't read all of the information yet, and I'm not aware of the consequences of the proposal, but at first glance it does appear as though the state government will be levying a further cost on our waste management area. That will result in a higher cost to our ratepayers, and it's not something that will be well known to our municipality until after it is passed and they get bills from the council for a higher waste management levy. So I think we need to be proactive and airing some concerns, because this council has been on record to try and do as best we can with the without adding impost to our ratepayers. This is a proposal that comes from left field, and I think is necessary for us to raise our concerns with the government. So I endorse the submission. Mayor, just on one more, while I'm still speaking. It is the note of the submission to the proposed decommissioning of the Waratah Reservoir. Can I endorse the comments or the submission that you have made, that the General Manager has provided you with some support? I think he's hit the nail on the head. I know he did provide me with an opportunity to provide some feedback to him on it, because I have been a little bit vocal. There was a couple of points that I raised with him that didn't make the submission. One was I questioned whether the Minister has the authority to actually make a decision under 12A of the legislation, because the information that the applicant provided, that's Taswater, it's out of date. So they've provided a recommendation on a report that was dated 2017, and on that basis I believe that the Minister can't make a decision, because there's works that's been undertaken which hasn't been taken into account in the 2017 report. So I don't believe that the Minister is authorised to make a decision on the information that he has at hand. And Mayor, I noticed that Mr. Shackcloth has wrote to you and said, hey Mayor, if you've got any further information that you'd like to submit, happy to receive it. When I seen that, I thought, I wonder whether the Mayor would allow me to put my comments in the form of a letter, and you, on behalf of me perhaps, could I make a submission? Because he has invited you to do that. I'm asking you, I guess, whether you would allow me to put my comments on paper, I give them to the general manager and he says yes or no, and send them off.
I think, Councillor Fairbrother, you and I and the GM need to sit down and consider your proposal and go from there.
Thank you.
And you just need to make a time available where it's convenient for the three of us.
Thank you.
Okay, where are we now? We have a motion. Any further questions? Any further speakers? Councillor Bramish? Okay. We haven't any. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.3, the financial report for the period ended the 31st of January 2021. Have a recommendation there that we note the financial report. Approve additional capital expenditure for installation of the cameras. We need approve the change of the scope of the Cumming Street Sealer Works and estimated project expenditure of 29.4.
Can I ask a question, if I may, Mayor? First, or do you want the motion?
No, if you've got questions to make your mind up, need a question answered for your decision, go for it.
Well, I'm quite happy to move the motion.
Do we? We need a mover and a seconder first.
I'll
folks.
move the motion.
Councillor Fairbrother. Seconder, Councillor Highland. And now we got time for questions. Councillor Bramish.
Thank you. With that little bit of money there, 29.4 and 7,000, how can, was that interfere with the bottom line too much, or do we need to knock a little job out to keep everything even in the budget?
Over to you, Mr. GM.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, both of these items, they're capital budget items, so they won't affect, I guess, they call it the bottom line or the operating result. They're both capital items. They're both additional expenditure, so clearly we didn't have them in the budget. So there'll simply be, a drawdown on future cash reserves.
Thanks, Mr. GM.
Can I ask, with the situation the world is in, and a zero rate increase to the ratepayers last financial year, is, excuse my ignorance, I'm only asking the question, I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I don't really understand myself what's right or wrong regarding these sort of things. Is it best practice for our business to knock a little job out and put this in to keep our cash reserves where they are?
Through Mr. Mayor, you can certainly do that. You can look for areas where you're in front in your budget, or you can take a particular job out or add one in. In the case of the Cumming Street works, they were in the budget, but I guess at a lower standard. And in relation to the camera, that would have been a proposal for next year's budget. So this is recommending, I guess, that is brought forward. So I don't think there's a material impact on council's financial position by approving either of those jobs tonight.
Thank you. I'll take that on board, and thanks very much for the answer. You've answered my question.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Edwards.
I just want to say, with the CCTV, I think I'm really happy seeing that come forward. I've seen some videos of where people have videoed people doing the wrong thing at the park, and they're too scared to go forward to the police about it because these kids see that they're being videoed and the vandalism that they're doing and the people that they were hurting at the time. So I think it's good to know if people know that there's videos there, because then they feel they feel safe when they're there, that there is a camera there.
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, if I can just comment, I just want to draw back to Mr. Hutchison's questions earlier in the evening, because I think they're relevant for those that are in attendance tonight. And just to clarify a couple of those points in relation to the cameras. So typically, councils provide, I guess, the infrastructure related to the cameras. So we provide the cameras and the poles. and the network connections. The feed themselves, so the actual data or the video, if you like, is directly through to the police. So whilst council can access that data, we don't, certainly there's no role for council to actively monitor nor draw down, I guess, the footage only in instances where the police can't access it themselves. So it's very clear we have arrangements with the police. We work with them as to where the cameras are best located. But in terms of if there's an incident, the police themselves can draw on that footage without council interference or involvement. So, as I said, typically our role is to provide the infrastructure and work with the police in those instances. I will say in this case that in relation to this particular playground, and Councillor Edwards has touched on it, that there are significant antisocial concerns that have arisen since the new playground has been constructed, particularly of an evening. So it's not so much during the day. I think we can all agree that the playground is very well populated and very well used, but there has been a significant increase in antisocial behaviour out of an evening, and it's thought that I guess the addition of a camera there may help curb some of that behaviour. We've also had regular meetings with the police. They're doing increased patrols of the area. We've added some additional signage, and I guess we have another number of other steps that we'll look to put in to try and curb some of those behaviours. But that's why this particular matter's been brought forward, because I guess officers don't believe it would be wise to leave that area unattended for any longer than we need to.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Okay, any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Mayor, speaking to the motion, thank the General Manager for his comments. Councillor Hutchison from the gallery did indicate that there are some sensitive issues around CCTV about the balance between private and public. I believe that I have a vote of confidence in council staff that somewhere there they have the mix somewhere near right. But I recognise that it is sensitive issue, and I guess it has played out on ABCT only last week, and later than that, I think it was Thursday in the Advocate. Mayor, my question is, ask a question in relation to Cumming Street and Morton Street and an area just off Cumming Street, whether they were intended to be included in the Cumming Street reseal. I don't know whether the engineer would like to add comment, or whether that proposal for Cumming Street reseal is just for Cumming Street alone.
Mr. Summers, could you handle that one, please?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe it's for Cumming Street alone, from Port Road up to the top of the hill, Moore Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, I did allude earlier to the ownership of Morton Street, which comes off Cumming at Boat Harbour Beach. The land under ownership, I believe on the list, is owned by an MB Fenton, Miss MB Fenton. She passed away a considerable amount of years ago. I own the land that Miss Fenton used to own. And my concern or query is that maybe Darren Fairbrother owns Morton Street now that I own the land, and it may be a little bit far-fetched, but I guess where I'm going with it is that I don't want it, and I think that it should be in council's hands. Perhaps Miss Fenton or the people that follow on from Miss Fenton perhaps do own it, but the reference to Morton Street is the land that I now own. And I don't want Morton Street, and if it is found that I own it, I'm quite happy to donate it to the council or sell it to you cheap. One of the two. Hence the question, and I think perhaps it'd be opportune for us to seal Morton Street and the little bit off Cumming Street at the same time. I would also like to add page 63 of the agenda, where we talk about employee costs. The word has been used unfavourable variance, which I'm sure in accounting terms is perhaps the correct terminology. I thought perhaps that word unfavourable variance is perhaps a little bit respectfully disingenuous, because I think that we as council have made a conscious decision to, through COVID, try and get the settlement strategy as best we can. And I think as councillors, we've requested specifically for the consultant that we've had, or the staff member that we've had, to undertake certain work, so that we were happy that we got as wide a spread throughout the municipality as we can with our settlement strategy consultation process. And I think that that has been worth the effort and the money. So when I read unfavourable variance, I think that it's been a cost that council has borne and that I'm happy to bear for the provision of that service. I don't know how we would have got it going through COVID, being under the stresses that we have been through our planning department and COVID, working off-site and delivering what we've delivered. We just couldn't have done it without having that additional cost. So whilst I note the unfavourable variation, to me it's one that I'm happy to wear. So I just add those comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, Mrs. Searle, wish to elaborate on that terminology, Mrs. Searle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Fairbrother. I just wanted to draw to your attention that we're continuing to review the forecast spending for wages. We are tracking higher than budget to date. So the commentary is not suggesting the appropriateness of that necessarily, but we're reasonably confident that costs can be managed to ensure that council delivers within the budget allocated by council. So we continue to work through that and expect to be able to manage that moving forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Searle. We shall, there was a question prior to that I think we needed the engineer to answer, Mr. GM. Was that the case? Yep. Mr. Summers, could you, in relation to those streets, Morton Street, Councillor Fairbrother was on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just looking at the list information on the web, Morton Street is listed as a public road owned by council. The land over which it traverses is also listed as with owner Waratah Wynyard Council.
Thank you. Okay, any further speakers in relation to 9.3 on the agenda?
I'll be real quick, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
Just in regards to digital innovation, digital innovation appears to be tracking higher than anticipated. However, further review is currently underway to ensure expenditure for this department is contained in the annual budget. Just wondering what exactly digital innovation covers. Does that mean we're going to try and staff our IT services a little bit better and then review the software that we have and the way we do those sorts of things? Because this is an area I'm very, very interested in.
Mr. GM. Yeah, Mrs. Searle.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Digital innovation is our IT department and incorporates our GIS and information management areas. So the subscription expenditure there, I think, is likely to be just due to an allocation issue. So which we'll just confirm that and report at our next council meeting. So no change to operations as such. Does that answer your question?
Okie dokie. We go on to the next. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Subsequent question, Mayor, if I may. Could the information be furnished when that change on the list was made? Has been in recent times. Subsequently, it's been made since the last time I looked. But I'm quite happy for that question to be taken on notice. In summarising, Mayor, if there are no more speakers.
I hadn't got to that stage yet. Were there any further speakers regarding the debate on this motion? Okay, you can close the debate, Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you, Mayor. One confidence I have reading the financial report, as alluded to the Director of Financial Services, is that it gives me every confidence to know that council staff are aware of where we are financially. You can pick it up through reading the information. It sounds as though, council staff are on the money with where we are at, which is what we would expect, but it comes through as you read the report. And it's like, gives me as a councillor every confidence to know that our staff are on the money when it comes to the money. And just leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. 9.4, the quarterly statistics report to the 31st of December for the quarter. The recommendation that the council note them. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Edwards moved. I wondered if there was a seconder. Councillor Courtney. Okay, any questions? It's all written. Any questions? No questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. That brings us to 10.5, minutes of other bodies and committees, which there are nil, and 11 matters proposed for consideration in the closed meeting. There's a recommendation that the council resolves by an absolute majority that the matters listed there below be considered in the closed meeting. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Fairbrother moved. Councillor Bradley. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please. Aye. Against? Carried. Item 12 on the agenda is the closure of the meeting to the public. That we absolute majority go into closed meeting to consider the following matters. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Bramish. Councillor Hyland. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? At 7:30.